All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Real Results Show. It is Wednesday, and we have another fantastic episode for you. So, have you ever wanted to know the secret to reversing thyroid issues naturally? Maybe you are struggling with fatigue. What are those hidden symptoms of thyroid? What can we do to dig into those and look at all of those factors? And so, I'm really excited to have Ryan Monahan with me today. We are looking at hidden stressors that contribute to your thyroid disease. So welcome everybody to the Real Results Show, where we feature real health coaches and health practitioners getting real results for themselves and for their clients. Before we start, I want you to drop the word thyroid, T-H-Y-R-O-I-D, thyroid, below this video, and we are going to send you a link for our psychological aspects chart or physiological aspects chart. You are going to want to get a hold of that handout so you can look at all of what goes on as far as the hidden stressors in the body. So I am your host, Piper Gibson. I'm the Director of Course Enrollment, and joining me today is Ryan Monahan. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing great. How are you, Piper? Thanks for having me on.
I am well, and I'm really excited to have you to talk about this because I think hidden stressors, thyroid issues, all of these things are a big factor for many people. And so I want to talk about, how you are successful with your clients and yourself for that matter.
I would love to talk about that.
Fantastic.
Where do we start?
Okay. I want you to start with sharing your own story, your own personal journey, because I know you've got some background for yourself here.
Yeah, and it was quite a long journey. I sort of lived through my own personal health hell, as many fellow health coaches and FDNs find themselves, right, in this similar boat where they're looking for answers that they haven't necessarily found from the conventional medical model or approach. And in my own case, I had spent nearly 15 years looking for answers to my health complications and had visited dozens and dozens, literally over 40 different doctors over the course of a decade, looking to find concrete answers to figure out what was going on with my health, right? So I had seen rheumatologists, GI specialists, therapists, the whole range of specialists, and really didn't get anywhere with that model or approach, and was just kind of continually getting worse over the years. Really until I discovered kind of this functional approach, and it was like the light bulb going off, this total paradigm shift. But for nearly a decade, I dealt with chronic fatigue, depression, debilitating allergies. To the point where I couldn't leave home without an inhaler or some antihistamines in my back pocket. It was pretty much that severe. That affected every aspect of my life, my social life, my relationships. I couldn't work full time because I was so sick. I was on most days sleeping about 10 to 12 hours a day, and that still didn't resolve my fatigue. And it went on like this for about a decade. So, in retrospect, I often say it feels like I lost out on this entire decade of what could have been the best years of my life, right? Due to these chronic symptoms that were seemingly unexplained without answer.
So what did you do I know you joined FDN, you became an FDN, but what did you really do to start to turn this around for yourself?
Initially, it was a lot of my own kind of self-research. I was eventually diagnosed with a thyroid issue in 2012. So that was 8 years ago. Can't believe it's been that long. And I'm here to tell the tale now and to be able to help other people, just having lived through the journey that I lived through and trying all these different approaches and seeing what works and what doesn't work, right? That's been very valuable experience. And what ultimately did work in a profound way was changing my diet and lifestyle, right? Just altering a lot of those fundamentals, because I wasn't there yet, right? Like in college, I was eating Krispy Kreme donuts, Easy Mac, dollar box of pasta, whatever was cheapest and easiest. I had no clue, right? Like how I should be fueling my body. Yet here I was chronically fatigued and depressed and constipated and having allergies all the time, all these weird like skin lesions showing up. Unfortunately, it wasn't maybe another decade until I figured out, what was causing all these issues. But what I did come across were some resources on my own when I was first diagnosed with hypothyroidism and Hashimoto's that really helped set me in the right direction even before discovering FDN. And that was coming across the work of Isabella Wentz, who wrote a fantastic book on thyroid health, Discovering the Paleo Mom, Sarah Ballantyne, autoimmune wellness, and kind of getting on this journey of reducing inflammatory foods in my diet, incorporating foods that would promote healing and promote gut health, right? So essentially getting on an autoimmune protocol type diet. And that did help tremendously. But as I found, as many people do, I was still hitting a wall with my symptoms, and I had still yet to run those functional labs that would help me identify some additional things that were kind of holding me back from my, optimal health.
So everybody who's just joining us, make sure to drop the word thyroid below so we can send you our physiological aspects chart. It's a great handout. Ryan and I are talking about hidden stressors and thyroid today, so you will not want to miss that chart. So make sure to drop the word thyroid. Ryan, I would love for you to explain to everybody what is a hidden stressor? What is that we're looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love making simple analogies when I work with my clients. So I'll often say it's something that's just keeping your body from functioning normally, right? It's kind of like taking a wrench and sticking it in between a couple of gears, right? So that the machinery is not working as it's supposed to. And I do really profoundly believe that our body is designed to work, and that we have this very intelligent, evolutionary, biological machine that's evolved over hundreds of thousands of years, and it's designed to work. But in a sense, the odds are against us in terms of our modern diet and lifestyle is not really in alignment with what our biology expects from us. And what our biology expects from us is nutrient density, clean filtered water, lots of sunlight, community, movement, a fair amount of sleep and exercise, right? And reducing stressful influences in our environment in terms of mental, emotional stress. So, if you kind of like turn back the clock and look at how our ancestors lived, it was dramatically different than how we live today. So, when we're taking that into consideration, it's really no surprise that we're seeing these astronomical increases in autoimmune diseases, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, right? We're just living a lifestyle that's not kind of in alignment with the laws or the biological laws, if you will, of our body, right? It's pretty simple from that perspective. Just like if you're anywhere in the world and you take a mouse and you drop it, it's going to fall to the ground, right? So if you're kind of using that law of gravity as an example, we can't expect to be drinking a liter of Coke every day and eating a bag of Fritos and expect our machinery in our body to work.
No, and I agree. And I think now more than ever, I just went down the hall before we started and told my teenagers, you have got to go outside today, leave your caves, go outside, get some sun, because they've spent the last, I do make them go outside, but I feel like they've spent the last 8 months inside in the dark, playing video games, being on, doing Zoom meetings just like this. And definitely like not part of their ancestral makeup. Go outside.
And what I've got to tell you is that I do a lot of testing with my clients and looking at different nutrient deficiencies. I would probably say a good 90% or more of them are deficient in vitamin D. And vitamin D is so critical to so many functions in the body, but among them supporting your immune system health, right? So in the lockdown situations, not necessarily helping anything. And I realize that to some extent it may be necessary, but it's still super important to be getting some sunlight any way you can, or if not, getting some vitamin D in the diet.
Yeah, no, we're definitely supplementing, but I'm like, please go outside. Please go outside.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely different times, not our ancestors' way for sure. So I would love to know, as far as functional lab testing, how did you start uncovering all of these hidden stressors?
Well, I largely have FDN to thank for that. It was a total game changer, saved my life. And the FDN training is top notch. It's, in my opinion, the leading program out there for teaching you how to identify these potential interferences or hidden stressors in the body. So as I started peeling back the layers, and I should just take a step back and say, we hear this term find the root cause a lot. And I'm sure a lot of people here tuning in and listening have heard this term in the functional world. But it is misleading in a sense, because for the vast majority of people, there's not just one hidden stressor. It's really tempting to like try to look for that one thing or that silver bullet that's just going to magically make all of your symptoms disappear. It doesn't work like that. For most people, as I was dealing with myself, I was dealing with leaky gut, nutrient deficiencies, gut infections like parasites that were identified on lab work. I was dealing with heavy metals and mineral imbalances. So hormone imbalances too. I had really super, super low cortisol, which is kind of like having no gas in your tank. My cortisol was just flatlined, and my testosterone was super low, which makes sense because I had zero libido, right? So all of these variables in the body interact together, and it's not like you can just kind of choose one and try to tweak or fix that and expect it to resolve your symptoms. You really need to kind of think in a comprehensive and holistic way. And that's ultimately what got me back to normal and functioning at my best, was changing and optimizing my diet and lifestyle, and then identifying all of these potential issues or hidden stressors that were holding me back and working on them one by one. And it definitely wasn't overnight. In hindsight, I wish I had someone that had a ton of expertise helping me to sort through all of these issues. But now that's sort of become my mission, to be that person for other people, so they don't have to spend years and years, if not decades, like I did, trying to figure this out, kind of wasting time and energy and money and effort, and occasionally throwing a dart at the board and missing the mark, right? It can just really, really help to work someone that can tell you not just what works, but what's not going to work and what might actually be detrimental, right? We know as FDNs that there are certain supplements even that may work against someone's health depending on their unique biological needs, right? So it's not as simple as let me go to Whole Foods and pick up some zinc and vitamin C and vitamin D. Not to say those things can't be helpful in a lot of instances, but it really is going to help accelerate your healing potential even further if you have some lab data to base those decisions off of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not one factor, it's many factors. And I often refer to myself as a professional hand holder, because just like you, we spent 6 years really struggling and trying to figure things out. And that's when I found FDN, and I was like, oh, let me turn this all around. And it made a huge difference. So I definitely relate to everything you're saying.
Just want to throw this out there too. I know you're a nutrigenomic expert. And one thing that I had uncovered on my own journey was that I had the dreaded homozygous double copy of the MTHFR gene, right? Not to say like for real, that's not anything to be scared or terrified of. It's a very common genetic mutation, but just having that knowledge helped me alter my diet in a way to sort of work with that, right? So that I was making sure to get the active form of folate in my diet, so that I was detoxing properly and my genes were working properly, right? And, that gets a little more complex, as you know, diving into those topics. But learning those little nuggets of information are like these puzzle pieces, and you put them together, it's going to be a little different for everybody, of course, right? There's not a one-size-fits-all approach. But, ultimately, learning all that information about myself was how I got onto this path to healing. And 5 or 6 years ago, I could have never even imagined having the energy and the mental clarity to be having a conversation like this today with you.
Yeah, I know you and I could nerd out on the nutrigenomics probably all day long, if not longer. But yeah, it's just one of those missing pieces of the puzzle. And I think that a lot of it is definitely misunderstood. And it's not just like, oh my gosh, it's my genes, it's my destiny. It's how does this part of your blueprint fit in, and how can you support that part? So yeah, I think that it's, again, just not one factor, but many factors for sure.
Yep, without a doubt.
So Ryan, I would love to know how people can get in touch with you, and if you can share a little bit about who your ideal client is, who you work with.
Yeah. So I go by the Mindful Nutrivore online. So you can find me at themindfulnutrivore.com. All my social media channels on Instagram and Facebook go by the same handle, the Mindful Nutrivore. Or you could just Google Ryan Monahan FDN. You'll find me that way too. I work with clients from all over the world. Actually, I've been recently working with some clients in Spain and Europe, in Australia. One of the really cool things about being an FDN is that you could potentially reach people everywhere. And I do primarily work with clients that are struggling with autoimmune conditions. Many of them have already tried a lot of diet and lifestyle approaches, have maybe tried a paleo diet or an autoimmune diet, but they're still kind of hitting a wall with their symptoms. And that's where we need to go deeper and look at these other mitigating factors. Oftentimes, spoiler alert, they're dealing with parasites, candida, H. pylori, heavy metals in their system, hormone imbalances. Usually the more entrenched someone is in dysfunction in terms of their symptoms, the more hidden stressors, if we're using that term, that we're going to find, right? And so within that autoimmune population, I do work with a pretty high percentage of those dealing with thyroid issues and Hashimoto's, and because that's kind of my area of expertise, and I have a lot of knowledge in that area just because that's what I went through myself.
And I think that's true for a lot of FDNs. We kind of gravitate to whatever it is brought us here in the first place.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you also work for FDN, for Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. And I would love for you to share a little bit about what you do, what your role is at FDN.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a clinical advisor for what's called the Medical Director Program at FDN, which means I get the benefit and the joy of working with other functional practitioners who are looking for support on their complex cases. So if other FDNs run a GI map or an OAT test or an HTMA, occasionally even some blood chemistry or other tests, they can come to me for a half-hour consult, and we'll go in depth in looking at those labs together so that they have more confidence when they bring those lab results to their client. So it's kind of like a back-end support system where I get to help interpret labs with other FDNs and help them to make better decisions about their protocols.
Awesome. So if you take the FDN course, you can absolutely get on the phone with Ryan as one of the clinical advisors. What is going on? Sorry. Problems here. Okay. You can get on the phone.
I like it.
See, look. Okay.
I like the look. Leave it.
Do you like it? Okay.
Leave it messy. Yeah, it's such a cool thing. And it was one of the initial things that really made me super interested in FDN was that not only do we have access to this test menu after we graduate, but also we get this back-end support from really experienced clinical advisors that have run hundreds of labs, right? So when I first graduated, I took advantage of these consults as much as I could. And beyond the core certification course, I learned a ton from the advisors. And if I wanted to become interested or learn more about a new lab, I would run it on myself, see what I could learn from one of the advisors. So such a cool, feature or aspect of being an FDN.
And absolutely one of the unique features of being an FDN, I think, is being able to get that advice, get that connection, get that continuing education, because for me, that's absolutely what it is. If I get on the phone with you or with Whitney or with anybody else, I am absolutely going to find information that I can take away and use forever and ever.
Yep, without a doubt. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, I appreciate you joining me today. Thank you so much for sharing your insights on thyroid health and on hidden stressors. Is there any final thoughts you would like to share before we conclude?
Take care of yourself, stay healthy, make sure, to take care of number one, right? I think that's so important, just to, in these kind of stressful times, that we take time out to relax and breathe and meditate. We even talked about that a little bit before the call, right? Because if your body is not functioning the way you need it to, it's really hard to show up in the world. And ultimately, what I want for my clients is for them to live their best life. I don't want anyone to be encumbered or hindered by their symptoms, where they can't go out and make a difference. And that's ultimately what it's really all about to me. The healing part of it is just a means to an end, so that we could live a better life, right? That's what it's really all about. And that's what I always hope for my clients, is that they can get to a point where their symptoms become invisible, and they're not something they have to think about every day, and just managing their symptoms, and that taking up all of that mental space and bandwidth, right? Because there's better things we should be worrying about and thinking about.
Yeah, I agree 100%. So everybody go out, take care of yourself. Just like I advise my kids, go out and get some sunlight today, get some vitamin D.
Right.
It's great for your immune system. It's renewing. It's some fresh air. So get outside today. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you hopping on today, and I definitely know you'll be back in the future. And I hope everybody has a great day, and we will see everybody next week. So bye, everybody.
Have a great day, everyone. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Bye, guys.